Thank you to NWN Carousel and Regan Communications for producing that amazing video. And Pete's words meant so much then. They mean even more to everybody here today. Our first speaker shares actually a lot of similarities with Pete Frates. Like Pete, Governor Maura Healey was a college sports star who played in Europe after graduation and has spent her life serving the greater good. It is now my honor to please welcome Governor Healey. Governor.
Wow. Pete brought the sun today, didn't he? Yes. And I just want to say thanks, Casey. Thank you for the invitation to be here to honor Pete. I mean, George, great job with the video. It's awesome, and just to see him and to hear his own words, says it all. But I will say a couple things because this is a celebration of a movement that went around the world. Thank you to the Frates family for your strength, your resilience, for showing us a way forward as Pete wanted, and for changing lives and the trajectory of lives in the process. So to Nancy, John, Julie, all of Pete's family, his friends, teammates, so many others who here have been inspired by his life of courage. We want to thank the Red Sox, awesome organization, always there delivering. Sam Kennedy, thank you. We've got legendary athletes, Ray Bourque, Matt Ryan, Mike Tinlin. Awesome. To Josh Kraft, Jim Sullivan, Steve Buckley. All the ALS researchers, the scientists who are here today. Can we give a cheer too for our great researchers and our doctors? They wear a different kind of uniform and they're awesome. And to the Pete Frates Family Foundation and all who give their time, their treasure, and their passion to this cause. I brag about Massachusetts. We're like a state of firsts. We first shots fired in the American Revolution, first schools, first computers, first cancer treatments, first vaccine for COVID. It's also fitting that out of Massachusetts sprung the greatest and first viral fundraising movement of our time, right? Thanks to Pete. Right out of here. And what an idea it was. Ice Bucket Challenge, to raise awareness, right? To build a community and to build that giving. Amazing. Pete has hit his goal with the work of you and so many around this world. So I just want to say as governor, one of the things that makes me the happiest is when I see people coming together. And there are heroes. There are heroes here on this field. There are heroes like Pete Frates who showed us what to do in the face of adversity. It's pretty amazing to see him, right, play on this field, hit that ball out of the park, and then to know how he really, his greatest home run was this Ice Bucket Challenge that continues to this day. When I was first running to be your Attorney General, it was 10 years ago, and I was one of those who dumped ice on my head, and we had a great time with it, and we're just going to continue that tradition today. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for continuing to fund, and thank you for giving many hope out there about what is possible. So God bless Pete Frates, God bless the Frates family, and thank you, Massachusetts, for representing and showing up for Pete.
Thank you, Governor Healey. As we've all said, Fenway Park has been hallowed ground for Pete and his family. I was here with Pete's family when Pete was inducted into the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame in 2017, and none of that could have been achieved without the love and the support of the Boston Red Sox, the team he loved the most. Speaking on behalf of the Red Sox today is team president Sam Kennedy. Sam.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Appreciate everybody being here today. Sorry. It's an emotional day for everybody at the Red Sox, given the love and connection to the Frates family. To think about Pete growing up here and his entire life being such a close-knit part of our family It started in 1984 in Beverly. He played Little League, went to St. John's Prep, goes to BC. He first gets on our radar screen in 2006 when he hits that ball over the right field fence. And every time I watch the video of it, which is way too often, John, I still watch it all the time, I look at him run and there's like no emotion. It's like, yeah, I was supposed to do that. He didn't even crack a smile. It was nothing. Pete was the most confident, incredible athlete and teammate you could ever ask for. So he hits that home run in 2006. Diagnosis comes in 2012. 2015, we signed him to a contract, so he's a Red Sox for life. 2019, he puts on that Red Sox World Series ring. We just loved him so much, and we loved the family, Julie and Jennifer and Andrew and Lucy, of course. Thank you guys for everything you've done. The governor said it so well. Pete has been such an important part of our family, of this organization, for our 2.5 decades here. And for those of you who follow Boston sports, you know that those of us in sports, actually those of you who follow politics as well, you know that the Boston media is not always totally fair to those of us in sports. They're not always the nicest people, and we don't always agree with them. However, our friend Steve Buckley is here today. Legend, I call him legend because that means he's old. Legendary Steve Buckley wrote something that is absolutely empirically true, and that is that Pete Frates is indeed the greatest Boston athlete of all time. And Buck, again, I don't always agree with you, but I agree with you on this. I've got a junior at Boston College, and while he looks up to Matt Ryan, he looks up to Big Papi, he looks up to Ray Bourque, he looks up to Mike Timlin, he looks up to Patrice Bergeron. There is no one that we should look up to more than Pete Frates and what he means to Boston, to our championship culture and tradition, and coming together and being strong and caring about other people. No Boston athlete has done more to bring people together, to symbolize what it means to be from this region, and to give hope and a cure for you guys sitting here in the front row. We support you and we love you. And Pete, we love you forever. Thank you for coming into our lives. Thank you to the whole Frates family. You're Red Sox forever, and we love you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Sam Kennedy, everybody. Thank you again, Sam. Now, as Sam mentioned, obviously our next guest needs no introduction. Other than that, he was one of the greatest athletes that Boston College has ever produced, and one of the greatest NFL quarterbacks of all time. And most importantly for today, Pete's college buddy, Mr. Matt Ryan. Matt.
Okay, it's an honor for me to be here. I just want to talk a little bit about my relationship and how I got to know Pete back in 2003. So we were in the same class at Boston College, and we were both at orientation in June, getting ready for school coming up in a couple of months. And it just so happened that in Vanderslice, where we were staying at the time, in that 8-person dorm, Pete was one of the guys in my room. And he was one of the first guys I met, like even football team, whatever. Pete was one of the first guys that I met at Boston College. And right away, you know, he had this personality. He was infectious. He had the hard Boston accent, which was, you know, unique for me growing up in Philadelphia, but hearing him talk and just kind of the energy that he had. But during his time at BC, he was really the guy that brought the sports together, right? Pete was kind of the glue guy. Whether it was connecting football with baseball, Pete was the guy. If it was connecting baseball with basketball and Jared Dudley and Sean Marshall, Pete was the guy. If it was connecting to the hockey program with Brian Boyle and those guys, Pete was the guy. And so, you know, that's kind of how I knew him throughout college. Was he's this guy who brings everybody together, and he's continuing to do that. And I view it as my responsibility as a friend to try and pick up that weight now that he's gone, right? To try and bring people together for a cause that he was so passionate about. And that's evidenced by today, by everybody showing up, by the continued support. And I'll just leave it with two things, right? There's really a two-pronged approach to what the Frates family is trying to do. And that's number one, find a cure. And there's lots of money that's being donated to that. And that's great, and we're going to find a cure. It's coming. But we also need to provide care for the families and for the patients that are going through it. And it's incredible what the Frates Family Foundation has done to assist with that care. As people begin to live longer, it becomes more expensive. We need to take care of them. We need to take care of those families. So I'd encourage everybody, support the cure, but support the care as well. So thank you very much.
Great words, Matt. Great reminder for everybody here. Thank you. Now, many of you know, but some of you don't, that Pete was a triple threat during his career, first at St. John's Prep, and big round of applause for any of the St. John's Prep folks here today, where Pete excelled at baseball, football, and hockey. In fact, Pete shares a birthday with his NHL idol, Boston Bruins legend, Hockey Hall of Famer, Mr. Ray Bourque. Ray.
Thank you. It's great to be here with a great crew here, distinguished guests. Yeah, we do share a birthday, and it was funny how, you know, the first time I met Pete was just after he was diagnosed, and we're having dinner at Tresca in the North End, and we're talking about how can we raise money for ALS. And then Nancy says, you know that you share a birthday with Pete. So she tells me every time she comes in the morning to wish him happy birthday, he had a poster over his bed of Ray Bourque. And he'd go, what about the big guy? Says, happy birthday, Ray. So that made it pretty special. But that night, we were talking about maybe putting a big hockey game together, bringing pros together and trying to go on the big rink and raise money that way. And next thing you know, Pete comes up with the Ice Bucket Challenge. That just goes viral and brings immense notice to ALS, and it was amazing how it went viral. All these athletes were doing crazy things for the Ice Bucket Challenge, and it was just amazing. So over the course of the year, I'm wearing a shirt that is Bourque Family Foundation. We created our foundation, and we always supported what Nancy and John and the family, Frates, were doing in terms of raising money, and we had a golf tournament for them, and we always kind of try to attend. You know, we jumped in the ocean on December 28th once, and there was all these things that they're running, we were supporting, and there came a time that we created, my wife asked, like, we had a golf tournament, a road race, a walk. Then my wife says, can we have something that has nothing to do with sports, where we could all get dressed up? And so we created, it was called the Black and White Gala. So black tie event, and pre-COVID we had it once, then we had to cancel 3 times, of course, of COVID. And during that time, Pete passed. And all the money that we were raising, we're trying to support people that support us and a lot of their endeavors and where they're going with stuff. We never really locked into one thing till Pete passed. And my wife and I looked at each other and we said, it's going to be called something else, and that black tie event's not going to be the Black and White Gala anymore. And we decided that we're going to have this night for ALS. And it was going to be called the Captain's Ball because of me being a captain for 14 years with the Bruins, but everywhere that Pete went, from a young age, his leadership, he was a captain everywhere he played. His hockey team, baseball team, everything he did, he was a leader, and he just brought people together, like Matt just said. He's a glue guy, and just had that gift. So we had it now for the last 2 years, and we probably grossed over $400,000 on both events. This is an event that is very special to me and my family, and it's September 19th this year. It goes to the Growth Clinic out of the Healey Center, not the Growth Clinic, Healey Center out of Mass General, and part of the funds go to the Pete Frates Family Foundation that gives grants out to families affected with ALS. So I will also say donate to both. And Dr. Merritt, I'd like to say at some point in time, I'd like to give you a check for $1 million every year with this event that we're putting on. And Sam, I'd like to thank you for your continuous support for our event that night. And so it's been amazing. You know, I was so happy when I went up to Nancy and John and kind of said, hey, would you guys like to team up? I think that with your networking and ours, we could put on an amazing event, and we have. So September 19th, BourqueFamilyFoundation.org, hear all about it. Look forward to seeing you there, and this is for you guys and for people that are coming behind you, that someday we are going to find a cure, and we're fighting with you guys. So thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
The great Ray Bourque, everybody. Thank you, Ray. Now, pro athletes and sports teams were really the first to embrace the Ice Bucket Challenge and spread Pete's mission of good. One of those teams, of course, was the Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Now, joining us now to represent the team is the president of the Patriots Foundation, Mr. Josh Kraft. Josh.
Thanks, Casey. Be passionate, be genuine, be hardworking, but never be afraid to be great. And those were Pete's words, and we all know that was the reality with Pete. He was great. $1 billion worth of funds raised to end ALS. That's how great he was. But he's actually greater than that, because he's raised a lot more money. He's raised trillions of dollars full of hope, community, resiliency, and most important, love. Love for everybody. Suffering, struggling with ALS, fighting ALS, their families, and the doctors trying to end it. And that's Peter Frates' magic. And his magic is working today because all of us are dying to get that water on our heads, I can tell you that. And the second thing, and I walked in, I saw John Frates. He remembered this story. I selfishly was a great beneficiary of Frates' magic. He was with the family at the game, I think against the Falcons on the sideline. And I went over with my daughter, and we're talking, and I told a joke that was really bad, and he laughed. And we were walking away, and my daughter Anna said, Dad, that joke sucked. And I go, Anna, Pete Frates laughed at it. So sit down and don't talk. But anyway, that magic will be a part of this community for eternity, impacting everybody with love, community, hope, and resiliency. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Nobody meant to bring up the Falcons game, Matt, so thank you for being a good sport on that. You know, it's hard to sum up what Pete means to New England sports, what he means to baseball. One of the most eloquent writers on this subject is renowned sports journalist Steve Buckley. Steve, why don't you join us?
Thank you, Casey. Did you hear that, Sam? I'm eloquent.
I heard it.
I met Pete Frates about 6 months before he was diagnosed. I was emceeing the Intercity League's Hall of Fame banquet up in Stoneham. And there was no dais, there was just a microphone. So as each Hall of Famer came up to receive their award, they would talk for 15 or 20 minutes and tell their story. And I had nowhere to sit. So at one point, I went over to one of the tables and I found myself sitting next to Pete. This is a true story, it's not a banquet story. And one guy after another would get up and tell their story. And finally, Pete looked at me and had this immaculate suit on. I was talking with Nancy earlier. Pete never went out the house without looking twice in the mirror. I think we all know that. So I looked at him, he looked at me, and he rolled his eyes because the guy was up there telling his story. And I leaned over and I said, "Don't worry, Pete. someday you'll be up there telling your story. Now, there's tremendous poignancy in this, considering that just a few months after that, Pete was diagnosed with ALS. I was working at the Herald at the time. I went to Mass General and I met him again in the lobby and I wrote a story on him. And I'll never forget this. He's telling me that this is an opportunity. Now think about that. You and your family have just received this devastating news, and you look at it through the lens of opportunity. So, as I look back now, as I stand here, as I think of me saying to Pete, don't worry, that'll be you up there telling your story, we're still telling Pete's story. It's been 12 years since his diagnosis. We are assembled here at Fenway Park. We are celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Ice Bucket Challenge, and we are telling Pete's story. And folks, keep telling it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Eloquent words, Steve, of course. Pete Frates and other ALS warriors, you don't have to fight your battles alone. Our warriors depend on their family, their friends, especially their caregivers. Joining us today is Pete's doctor, Dr. Merritt Sokovich, from the Healey Center for ALS at Mass General Hospital. Doctor, please.
Thank you. It's so amazing to see all of you here today. When I first met Pete at Mass General, instead of talking about him, he asked me, what's it going to take to cure this illness, to make an impact? How much money? And without a lot of thought, I just said $1 billion. He said, we're going to get that for you, and we're going to do it together. And he did. He did the $1 billion. He did much more than $1 billion. He really changed the world. It's hard to believe that dumping a bucket of ice over your head was going to change how we think about ALS, but that simple act did more to raise awareness for ALS than any other effort, and it catalyzed amazing research advances. It brought so many new scientists to the field all over the world, and that's making the difference today for people living with ALS. This multiplier effect of the Ice Bucket Challenge continues to be nothing less than astonishing. Today at the Healey and AMG Center for ALS at Mass General, we take to heart Pete's motto that you just heard every day: be passionate, be genuine, be hardworking, and don't be afraid to be great. Since opening the Healey Center in 2019, the FDA approved first gene therapy for one form of ALS where people not only stopped progressing but got better. That is extraordinary. And it tells us it's possible for all forms of ALS. And that research was funded in part by the Ice Bucket Challenge money that went to the ALS Association. We also launched an entirely new way of developing treatments for people with ALS called the Healey Platform Trial, where we test multiple drugs at one time. We cut the development time in half. More people get access. In just the first 3 years, 2 of the first 5 drugs we tested have positive results. One prolongs survival, the other slows progression, and they're both moving forward to discussions with the FDA about approval. None of this would have been possible without the Ice Bucket Challenge and the attention to ALS and the awareness and the funds that have come in, and all the companies that are now attracted to ALS to try to solve this with us. We also led the nation in something called expanded access protocols or compassionate use. We heard from people living with ALS that they wanted to be part of trials, they want access to treatments. So we're leading the nation here from Massachusetts on EAP or expanded access clinics all over the country. And now through the advocacy of people with ALS, the government, the NIH, is funding these compassionate use programs at 40 centers throughout the U.S. The Ice Bucket Challenge funds have led to new discoveries about the cause of ALS, and the more we understand about the cause, the better the treatments are going to be. So we need to continue to work together, and with the Frates family and their foundation who inspire us with their determination, I know together we're going to strike out ALS. Thank you.
Incredible words, Dr. Merritt. Thank you so much. And I liked how you talked a little bit about the Pete Frates ALS Ice Bucket Challenge multiplier. When you think of all the money that Pete and the Ice Bucket Challenge has raised to fight ALS, think about it a little bit. Over the past 10 years, how do we donate? We all make our donations, or most of us do that online. You know, Pete was the granddaddy of the GoFundMe movement. So you think about the billions of dollars that have been made, raised worldwide for causes all around the world, and it all really kind of started here at this Field of Dreams at Fenway Park. So how can technology support the mission? Now it's my pleasure to introduce you now to Jim Sullivan. Jim is a Boston College grad like Pete, and the president and CEO of Boston-based NWN Carousel, our corporate sponsor. Jim, why don't we say a few words?
Thank you, Casey. Good afternoon, everyone. Our company, NWN Carousel, we're a technology services company. We serve 5,000 customers, public and private sector across the country, but we're Boston-based, and a huge mission of our company is to give back and participate with incredible organizations. We could not be more proud and grateful to be partnering with the Frates family, the foundation, representing Pete. I mean, Pete really took advantage of technology innovation around social media that created this groundswell, but technology coupled with great minds is going to solve what seemed like an impossible challenge before. As Casey mentioned, I'm a Boston College grad. One of the mottos for Boston College is developing men and women to serve others. And there's really no greater example than what Pete Frates has done around creating this groundswell to create all of this funding, all of this momentum to solve this problem. And in all the BC history, I cannot think of a greater example of someone really selflessly giving to others. So we look forward to partnering and supporting and helping to really raise funds and support for the Frates Foundation family, and we're really grateful and proud to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, and thank you, NWN Carousel, Andrew Gilman, his team, for your tremendous support, not only this year, but several years. Batting cleanup, so to speak, is my hero, Nancy Frates.
Yeah.
Pete's mom, and one of the world's most passionate and important voices speaking about ALS today. Nancy.
Thank you, Casey. I have to tell you, I'm sticking to a page because those of you that have seen me talk, you know that can go for a while. But I'm going to start with one thing. These amazingly beautiful people that are up here, I want you to know that most of these people were part of our journey before one bucket of ice dropped. They were with us by our side in 2012, in 2013, and 2014 before anybody poured ice water over their heads. I am forever grateful to these, I speak for my whole family. And that's, honestly, that's what it's all about today. It's just gratitude. Gratitude for all of you. Gratitude for all of you here, because you are the epicenter of the trajectory change in the course of ALS. Because Boston is where it started. And it might have gone all over the world, and it might have raised $1 billion, but it's all of you. And most of you that are here were with us before one bucket of ice dropped. So thank you. Thank you to all of you. You know, 10 years ago, we were moved by the story of two young men who were given a diagnosis and a fatal prognosis that no one should ever have to hear. All of you were asked to pour ice water over your heads, but more so to open your hearts, your minds, and then your wallets to help fight the disease that was going to take the lives of these two young men. And you did. You know, we've been doing a lot of interviews, and there's two questions that were asked a lot. What does this mean to you? It means that our son's life was one of grace, determination, and purpose. That through his resilience, diligence, and courage, he created a movement
that is still being celebrated today for all those that have been affected by this horrific disease. That 10 years later, even though his human body is no longer with us, his powerful spirit is still being celebrated along with the historic movement, and as Merritt has told you, results. You brought results. But as Pete would say, we can have fun today, but the job isn't done, and let's get back to work tomorrow. We need to continue in his honor to get to his ultimate goal of a cure. Second thing people ask us all the time is, what can I do? Here it is 10 years. What can I do? Well, here you go. And guess what? There's 3 of them. The first thing is to remember. Remember 10 years ago when you poured ice water over your head for your first time. What was it? It was family. It was friends. It was community. You all got together on a hot day like today, and you laughed, and you felt joy. But then you felt good because you were doing something for someone else. The second thing I'm going to ask you is to share. When that comes up on your feed in the next month, share it. Remind people. Or do a new ice bucket challenge. We're going to do one today. Carry it on and share the one that you do today. There's a heck of a lot more platforms on social media than Facebook that was standing alone back in 2014. I also want you to share your memory, because your sister who was 4 or your child who was 12, they're now 14 and they're now 22. Share how you felt. Share why you did it, because we have to pass the torch to the next generation to carry on this work for the heroes and the warriors who are now on their journey and those who are soon to be diagnosed. And the last thing I'm going to ask you is to contribute. Maybe it's your time that you can contribute. Go to a walk. Come to Ray Bourque's beautiful gala that celebrates ALS. Or contribute to your time to visit a family who's on an ALS journey. Send them a text, bring them a meal. Or if you want to contribute money. Contribute money to the Healey Center or one of the beautiful ALS organizations that are here with us. But what I want to say the most is all the things that have been said about Pete. There are a lot of you in here who knew Pete before he was diagnosed. He'd be rolling his eyeballs right now, and he'd be texting Casey, just like he did the day that Casey came and Dave came to interview us to write the book. He said, "Don't listen to them all. That's all BS." He would be dying about this. But from the bottom of our hearts, it's a simple thank you. Peter is smiling down. That's why we're all sitting here sweating in 100 degrees, because he thinks this is a pretty funny joke. We are all here on his favorite place on earth, and he is reminding us there's work to be done. So Casey, let's do this.
Nancy Frates, everybody. Just let Nancy's words sink in a moment, you know. We do live in a complex and challenging world, but we all can look at a moment in 2014 when the entire world, 150 countries around the world, put an ice bucket over their heads, regardless of how they believed, how they felt, or regardless of their political or their religious status. They did that for one mission, which was to help a fellow human being. And let's all continue to remind ourselves that this is a great world, a good world, and we can do great things together. Finally, it's the moment we've all been waiting for here today, the Ice Bucket Challenge of 2024. So we're going to do the ice bucket right in back of us here. Now, anyone with a red Pete Frates Ice Bucket Challenge wristband, I would like you to form a line to the back of us going down the concourt where the exit sign is, and then coming up through the elephant print walk up here to the field. Get behind your ice bucket, and Julie Frates is going to count us down.
I'm just gonna go out. Yeah, you're gonna find a spot. So.
Okay.
Come on, get you.
Oh yeah, basketball photographers here about Herald too.
Yeah, maybe here I think is good.
We'll share. We'll share. Oh, yeah.
Well, come right here.
Ready? We'll share one.
There's one right here.
All right, we'll share one. Right here.
Do you want that? Andrew, there's one. We'll scooch down. Here, when you're ready.
Scooching? Scooching?
Why don't you each get one?
Ready? Yes, right here.
Good looking. Good looking.
George, you gonna do it again? George, come on. George, how are you, buddy? All right? You get in. Get in there.
Nice and slow. Look how good he looks.
The old days we those baseball. Nice and slow. Come on in. Yeah. Come on, get in. Get under there. Grab some, guys.
Right more food on your
It turns out to be one of the greatest. Movement day. Yeah. Right? Right, who's saying this? Anybody? Where's Julie?
Great.
All right, there she is.
Everybody ready for this? We've been waiting an hour and a half. Let's go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's the joke?
I'm going to call my daughter Anna. And I'll say
Are you serious?
Say hi to Gabe. G-Man. Can I get a picture? How old? Wings that are 6 and
You're in the.
with the families at the heart of this. Their pain is unimaginable. And so I call on everyone to give them, and indeed the wider community at Southport, the space to grieve, and time for the authorities in Merseyside to do their job. There will be a time for questions, and we will make sure that the victims and families in Southport are at that's the very least that we owe these families. But we also owe them justice. So while there's a prosecution that must not be prejudiced, for them to receive the justice that they deserve, the time for answering those questions is not now. And I remind everyone that the price for a trial that is prejudiced is ultimately paid by the victims and their families who are deprived of the justice that they deserve. Let me now turn to the actions of a tiny, mindless minority, because in the aftermath of this attack, the community of Southport had to suffer twice. A gang of thugs got on trains and buses, went to a community that is not their own, a community grieving the most horrific tragedy, and then proceeded to throw bricks at police officers who just 24 hours earlier had been having to deal with an attack on children in their community. Their community. Whether it's in Southport, London, or Hartlepool, these people are showing our country exactly who they are. Mosques targeted because they're mosques. Flares thrown at the statue of Winston Churchill. A Nazi salute at the cenotaph. And so I've just held a meeting with senior police and law enforcement leaders where we've resolved to show who we are. A country that will not allow understandable fear to curdle into division and hate in our communities. A breakdown in law and order on our streets. Because let's be very clear about this. It's not protest. It's not legitimate. It's crime, violent disorder, an assault on the rule of law and the execution of justice. And so, on behalf of the British people, who expect their values and their security to be upheld, we will put a stop to it. I want to thank all of the police officers across the country who have already, as they do so often, stood up to intimidation and violence in the past few days and indeed throughout the summer. And let me be clear, the meeting this afternoon was not about pointing the finger of blame. That is not how this government of service conducts its business, because it doesn't work. Rather, this was a meeting to pull together our response, a response both to the immediate challenge, which is clearly driven by far-right hatred, but also all violent disorder that flares up, whatever the apparent cause or motivation. We make no distinction. Crime is crime, and so to that end, I can announce today that following this meeting, we will establish a national capability across police forces to tackle violent disorder. These thugs are mobile, they move from community to community, and we must have a policing response that can do the same. Shared intelligence, wider deployment of facial recognition technology, and preventative action, criminal behaviour orders to restrict their movements before they can even board a train, in just the same way that we do with football hooligans. And let me also say to large social media companies and those who run them, violent disorder clearly whipped up online, that is also a crime. It's happening on your premises. and the law must be upheld everywhere. That is the single most important duty of government. Service rests on security, and we will take all necessary action to keep our streets safe. I'll now take a number of questions from the media. I'm going to start with Alex from BBC.
Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed. Alex Forsyth, BBC News. Can I ask, how concerned are you that the violence that we've seen may spread? Are you providing extra police resources? Are you preparing any clampdown on the far-right groups that are being blamed for this? And indeed, if you are, how can you, given that they're often very disparate? And if I may, are you satisfied with the way the BBC's handled the Hugh Edwards case? Thank you.
Yeah, well, Alex, in relation to the violence that we've seen, the whole point on pulling together the meeting today was to have a coordinated response. The clear message from police and law enforcement is not that they need more powers. I think we have to wean ourselves off the idea that the only response is to pass more legislation every time we have a challenge in front of us, is to use the existing powers that we've got, pulling together the intelligence, the data, making sure that that is being shared across police forces, and that as these groups sort of bounce from chief constable to chief constable around the country, we have the same response, robust response to them, and that we're clear that this is violent disorder, it's not protest, and that needs to be the starting position of the policing response to it. In relation to Hugh Edwards, look, I'm shocked and appalled, I'm sure, as everybody is in relation to this. The Culture Secretary is meeting the Director General of the BBC later on today. Thank you, Alex. I'm going to try and wean people off the 2 or 3 questions in one, if I may, because otherwise we just won't get through. I've got actually Paul from Channel 4 next.
Hi, Keir. You mentioned there the national capability across all police forces. We've spoken to your new Labour MP in Hartlepool today, and he said that Cleveland Police were simply overwhelmed. They don't have the number of police officers to deal with what they had to deal with. So will you be fast-tracking the recruitment of more police officers? Will what you're announcing today actually increase the number of police officers on the street?
Well, we've already made a commitment to increasing police numbers. That's a commitment we made into the general election, and particularly police officers to work in neighbourhood policing. And that did come up in the meeting today in terms of the capability that's needed. But look, Paul, to be frank, what happens in the next few weeks matters, and that isn't a question on its own of recruitment, which takes longer. It is a question of coordinating the response, making sure the capability that we've got to share intelligence, share data, have a coordinated response, so that arrests are followed swiftly by charging. It is an attempt to pull that together so that those that engage in criminal behaviour, which this is, will feel the full force of the law very quickly. And I think that's the most important aspect coming out of this meeting this afternoon. Thank you. I've got Shihab from ITV.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Shihab Khan from ITV News.